We all knew the Houston Texans were going to be a steaming, stinking pile of crap in 2021. Like, you knew that going in. No illusions to anything contrary. J.J. Watt's gone. You've got the whole Deshaun Watson saga. He wants out. You got the off-the-field shit. Is he even going to suit up and play for the team, or are they going to trade him? And the answer is no to both. You got the David Culley head coaching hire, a guy that waited until his mid-60s to finally get a head coaching opportunity. It felt like he was being thrown to the wolves. A team that all the while you looked and just talent deficient all across the board. The presumed favorites to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the 2022 NFL Draft. However, they didn't end up as the worst team. They were one of the worst, but they weren't the worst. They went 4-13 this year, which if I told you the Texans were going to go 4-13 this year, you'd have said, man, that's at the absolute high end of what this shitbag roster could do. They're not winning anything more than that, and you probably would have leaned more to the 1-16, 2-15, 3-14 records. 4-13 felt like the absolute cap max for this team. And I know what some of you are going to say, the smart asses. You're going to go in the comments and point out, well, they beat the Jaguars twice. How much does that really count? Yeah, that's true. But I also point out that they beat the Titans and the Chargers. So they beat a couple of pretty good teams, along with their 2 victories against the Jags. But you look at that and you say, it wasn't all bad. Like, quality wins against the Chargers and the Titans. 3-3 in the division. You could actually say as the season progressed and Davis Mills got more time on the field, more time in the lineup, you actually started to see a bit of growth and development from Davis Mills. Like, it wasn't a total loser of a season for the Texans. And it pisses me off. Now, granted, David Culley had to know going into this there was a very good chance that he was a stopgap. He was going to be there for 1 year no matter what, and he was going to get fired. So he looked at this as a chance to get a head coaching nod for a year. I'm going to go get a shit ton of money guaranteed over a couple of years, no matter what. Can't blame him for that. But he got hose-bagged here by the Texans. If Texans fans aren't big fans of him, so be it. But damn it, who was going to do much better with this team? He deserved a second year. And just how much of a dumpster fire the Texans are, it took them 4 days after the season to determine, we think we're going to move on from David Culley. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Which even comes through in the head coaching search. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But David Culley got screwed. He deserved the right to have a second year. 4-13 with this shithole roster is pretty damn good work. I said before the season that if David Culley won 6 games with this damn roster and team, he should be the NFL Coach of the Year. He was 2 games short of that. Like, come on, man. What the hell else was this dude supposed to do? And then you look at their head coaching search in the offseason, of course. You know, there was talk about whether or not Brian Flores may want to go there, especially with the alleged, close relationship between him and Deshaun Watson. Like, could he salvage that relationship? And then Brian Flores, the dumb fuck, goes after the NFL in court. Lawsuit time. Great. Worthy, great cause. The absolute last person that you want to be the face of it. Seriously. So many other worthy guys that could have been the face of a lawsuit like that. Like if you said Jim Caldwell was suing the NFL, I'd be like, you know what, sir? I'm with you. Because you have legit experience. You have a winning record as a head coach. You've been successful at 2 different stops to varying degrees in both Indianapolis and Detroit. The fact that you didn't get a 3rd head coaching opportunity is bullshit, period. If he's the face of that, and if you're going to say, Eric Bieniemy, fine. Well, he didn't interview well, or he kind of rubs people the wrong way. And Matt Patricia blew the fucking Lions' doors off a few years ago. You get what I'm saying? Adam Gase? Like, give me a fucking break here. What are the standards? But the fact that it's Brian Flores is the face of this fucking lawsuit. Mr. Everybody else is to blame but me. Maybe the reason these teams don't want anything to do with you is because you're a fucking idiot. And who knows whether the lawsuit had any implications here on whether or not the Texans were going to hire him. Certainly seemed like he got to a point that they were really staring down the barrel of the Josh McCown shit, which came up last year. And I'll say this about the Josh McCown shit. The optics would have been absolutely horrendous, yes. This is a guy, played quarterback in the league for a number of years, yes, but he also no head coaching experience in the NFL, no real coaching experience in the NFL, and now he's just jumping to the front of the line. Yeah, the optics would have looked absolutely horrendous. They absolutely would have. You cannot say otherwise. You could also say there was a precedent for doing this in the NBA, where you've done it with guys like, Steve Nash, and Jason Kidd, and Derek Fisher. These were guys that played in the league a long time, and then shortly after they retired, their first coaching job in the NBA was a head coaching gig. Now you might say, well, that's Jason Kidd and Steve Nash, Hall of Famers. Derrick Rose, all-time, clutch role player. But still, the precedent is there. But I'll say this for the Texans. It's damn the reaction, damn the scorn, damn the hate or anything else. If you felt like Josh McCown was your dude, then you hire him. Because at the end of the day, if it's right, nobody's going to say shit. And if it's wrong, you were wrong either way. But with all that said, I can't be more pleased with who the Houston Texans hired to be their replacement for David Culley. They just stuck in-house and went internal. Lovie Smith is an NFL head coach again. I know the history of third-time head coaches in the league is not tremendous. I also know this is a historic thing because this is the first time a black coach has gotten a head job with the third team. You figure you had the 9 years with the Bears, you had the 2 seasons with the Bucks before he got fucked and screwed there. And now a few years later, Lovie, almost in his mid-60s, is getting one last chance to be an NFL head coach. Hell yeah, I'm fucking pumped for that. He deserved it. As if this is pointing to the whole Brian Flores is a fucking idiot thing when he tries to sit there and say that or allude to even that he's more qualified than a Lovie Smith. What the fuck are you talking about? People saying that they can't believe a Lovie Smith got hired over a Brian Flores. Frankly, if you look at the experience in the resume, I can't believe you would sit there and want to hire Brian Flores over fucking Lovie Smith. You have to be a moron to do that. Lovie Smith, I wish David Culley didn't get fired. He deserved a second year. But Lovie Smith is your dude. Lovie Smith is a calming presence. Lovie Smith is a leader of men. You could question, is his defensive approach a bit dated? And, is the approach dated? Or is it look dated when you have shitty talent? Executing said strategy, said game plan, said defense. We'll find out. But for an organization that needs a ballast that could be a calming, steadying presence and leadership, you can't do much better than Lovie Smith. We will see how this works out in due time, but this was a hell of a hire for the Texans based off of the dumpster fire they are and the situation and circumstance which they found themselves in of their own doing and devices entirely. Now you go into the offseason, you say what? You've got a little bit of cap space, but not a ton. But you can always, again, the cap, fugazi, it's fucking fake. You can play around with that. What you can say is you got to figure out what the Deshaun Watson situation is because none of the other offseason moves you make matter until that one goes down. And if you're going to trade him, you need that trade to hurry up and happen as quickly as possible because you want to be able to leverage some draft picks that you could utilize in 2022's draft in order to improve this team that needs improvement all over the damn place. That's the number one goal of the program, as Lovie Smith said years ago. Number one goal of the program, number one goal. Number one goal of the program is to figure out what the fuck you're doing with Deshaun Watson so you can move on once and for all and maximize whatever return you can get back. Then the second part of that in terms of the quarterback position is you have to determine whether you are truly confident in Davis Mills as the option going forward, or at least in 2022, and maybe you kick the can down the road a year. Now, you could make an argument there, especially when you look at this draft. You can say, hey, let's put some pieces around Davis Mills and let's give him another year. I'm not saying I would do that. I'm not saying I wouldn't do that either. But they got to figure that out. Move on from Deshaun Watson. Get that done. Figure out whether Davis Mills is their guy so it formulates the rest of their offseason strategy. Lets them know we're going to build around Davis Mills or we got to find a guy to replace Davis Mills. Got to do something. And then after that, they've got to build up that offense. You have to assume Lovie Smith another year in charge. I'm sure they will have some type of defensive leaning in this draft. Might even take a defensive guy in the first round. Ojabo from Michigan would be a fantastic fit for Lovie's system. But they got to build up that offense, especially if they're going to roll with Davis Mills or they draft a young quarterback. Because in order to win in today's NFL, you've got to have an offense. You've got to be able to score damn points. You know, and as bad as the Houston Texans look, I'll say this, is that while the Titans are the clear-cut best team in that division, and then you have the Colts, and then you have the Jags and Titans at the very sewer bottoms, it doesn't necessarily, in theory, take that much to have a quick turnaround and be competitive in the AFC South. I'm not calling for that in 2022, mind you. I'm just saying, like, to set some expectations of this Texas team could get better and could be in the mix sooner than maybe some people think. Although it's going to come down to what they do this offseason, what type of return they can get on the Deshaun Watson deal. But that's the thing. You got to move that domino. You've got to move that piece. You got to take care of that now. The quicker you do that, the better off you are. Allows you to focus on Davis Mills and whether he's going to be the guy or not that you build around. And then you go from there and build up that offense. But either way, it sucks that David Culley got fired. I hate that for him. On the flip side, I love the fact that Lovie Smith is getting a third opportunity, even with some of the concerns about historically, what do guys do in their third head coaching stop? You know, the results are not always great. But his resume merits him a third shot, and no matter how you get it, he fucking got it. So there will be a small piece of me that'll be rooting for the Texans to do well in 2022 now.